Hello everybody and welcome to Whisky Daddy Review number 2. That's right, we've made it to number 2 and today we have a special guest.
I am special.
My dear friend, Jacob John.
Good to see you folks.
Welcome him in. They're going crazy
So
over here.
I am not an expert by any means, but I am your average everyday consumer and I like to drink scotch, whiskeys, bourbons, anything that tastes good, anything that this guy actually recommends. So here I am, and I'm going to give you my my first-hand look at some new whiskeys that I've never tried before.
Unadulterated, uncut, unfiltered responses to how you feel about this whiskey. This is beautiful. This is why we do this. This is why we bring people in here to do this.
I'm ready. Listen, I'm ready to drink.
He's been ready to drink all day. All right, so what we're doing is this is actually going to be a mini-series, so to speak. We're going to introduce 3 whiskeys in this video. We're going to review one of them, and then we're going to move on to the second whiskey and the third in some upcoming reviews. So you have to stay tuned for some of those. Colonel E.H. Taylor, that is the lineup that we're bringing to you today. We have the small batch, the single barrel, and the straight rye. Okay? Now, E.H. Taylor was pretty fundamental in starting the whole Bottled in Bond Act back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I wish I knew the exact date. That probably would have been a good thing to know for this video. But, oh well, you know, one take, we're doing what we can. But a bottled in bond whiskey, especially, you know, in the early 1900s, it was very important because it set a few standards, which I will now list for you. All right, to be labeled bottled in bond, the liquor must be a product of 1 distillation season, that's from January to December, and 1 distillery. So like in this particular case, Buffalo Trace. These are the people that release this whiskey now. All right, it must have been aged in a federally bonded warehouse under U.S. government supervision for at least 4 years, and bottled at 100 U.S. proof, which is 50% alcohol by volume. So the higher the alcoholic strength, the more flavor it delivers to you. So that's a good thing.
The better the end game.
The bottled product label must identify the distillery where it was distilled, and if different, where it was bottled. Only spirits produced in the United States may be designated as bonded. All right, so let's see if we can find these. Okay, so distilled, aged, and bottled by Old Fashioned Copper Distillery, Frankfort, Kentucky. So there we go. Of course, they're owned by Buffalo Trace.
Not to mention, and an important note from an average everyday consumer, I used to spend a lot of money buying very expensive whiskeys and very expensive single malt scotches. I asked JT, listen, I need some alternatives that don't break the bank. So he's actually put together some great whiskeys and actually showed me and given me some advice on where to buy and what kind of whiskeys to buy and try that almost taste very similar to these expensive $200, $300, $400 bottles and under $100 a bottle. So this is what you see here is under, everything here I believe, what JT, is under $100 a bottle?
Yep. Small batch right here is going to run you somewhere between $35 to $40. The single barrel, this one over here, this is going to run you anywhere between $60 to $70, and then the straight rye is going to be, I think, somewhere between $70 to $80.
Okay, so very affordable, and I guess we're going to see here in just a little bit
how good it
is.
is.
They taste.
The mash bill on this, and I couldn't find an exact mash bill on this one, but what I did find that of the Buffalo Trace lineup, this one has a 10% rye percentage. Now, it doesn't give me how much barley and how much corn are in there, but if you are familiar with Blanton's, which I'm sure you all are with, this one is 15% rye. So this is a slightly lower rye content, which is surprising when we start talking about the particular whiskey we're talking about today, which is the small batch, because I think the rye is pretty evident on it. So, nosing and tasting, I do apologize, I don't have my tasting notes here, so we're pretty much going off the rip. Each and every one of these bottles that we're going to be trying has been open for about 3 to 4 weeks, okay? And as you can see, I've been doing some due diligence on all of them, just for you guys out there. It's hard work, but somebody has to do it, and I've decided to taste them ahead of time so I have some ideas of what's going on. So we're starting off with the small batch, this we're going to review now, and on...
Which one is that one? This one?
Yeah.
All right.
This is the least expensive of the 3, so...
So immediately I'm getting some notes of vanilla, peanut, maybe even a little bit of cinnamon. What do you get?
The first thing I notice is, to me, it's almost like a very faint hint of banana Fosters. I get bananas and I get brown sugar. And this is why we have two noses here. I get two I do get the vanilla. The vanilla is definitely there. There is a very oaky background that kind of overlays over top of all of this. I do pick up the peanuts and the salt, which he's talking about on the palate, and we'll talk about that in a second. There's definitely a bright cherry, raspberry, fruity note there coming from the rye once the nose gets a little bit closer into this Glencairn glass that I pick up. And I also want to say, we've had these poured now for probably about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Even though these are only 4-year-old whiskeys, they do need about 5 to 10 minutes in the glass. We use our little eyedropper here with some water to put about, maybe in this particular whiskey, 5 or 6 drops in. That's really it. They need that time to settle down, open up, to where you can really smell this whiskey. It's very closed from the beginning. Even though these bottles have been open for a while, it's a very closed whiskey. Anything else in the nose that you can smell?
You know, more sweetness than anything else. I mean, you can immediately get the brown sugar off the nose.
Right. And then coming from a man who drinks mainly Scotch, this is going to be a very sweet product from this. It's a very sweet bourbon. So,
Okay, so immediately you get that salty peanut along with the sweet. Definitely, as it's going down, you get the vanilla. You taste that. More prevalent even right now.
The arrival of this whiskey is very, very sweet, like he said. Sweet. I get sweet brown sugar. I do get the peanut and the salt in the development of the whiskey. It starts to develop. It's a fairly short arrival. It goes from sweet to salty pretty quickly. And the development lasts for a while, and that's when I start to pick up more of the banana that I got on the nose and some of these darker, woodier notes. And then the finish, boy, it is very spicy on the finish. It is
a good spice on the finish.
It's very cinnamon, nutmeg, wood spice, all that. And the only complaint I have is the finish, even though it's pretty fantastic, it's not very long. It's pretty in and out. So that would be my one fault. And this is bottled at Bond, so it is a stronger strength. There is a uncut, unfiltered version of this particular whiskey out there, and I unfortunately have not had that. These are only released once a year, so even though they're affordable, they're not that easy to come across. So do be looking for them right now. We'll film this one on January the 16th? 17th of 2016. So basically, you need to be going now and looking for these whiskeys if you're going to look and find them.
Very good. You said this is about $65 a bottle?
This one's about $35 to $40.
$35. Okay, so very impressive for a $35 whiskey. So if you're used to drinking the Macallans or the Glenmorangies or anything in that realm where you're spending $75, $85, $100, $120 a bottle, this is definitely a great substitute. This definitely has very complex flavors, has a great nose to it. It goes down well. Definitely is something that'll impress your friends as well. So this is definitely a good bottle of whiskey to keep on your shelf.
And if you got a bourbon drinker that you know that's coming over, they're going to appreciate this whiskey. Not the most fantastic whiskey they've ever tried, but they know it's one of the most reliable, and especially being bottled and bond, released once a year, and anything from Buffalo Trace is a fantastic product. And we're going to be continuing to review a ton of Buffalo Trace products on Whisky Daddy. So, out of 100, where would you rate this whiskey? If you were to say, okay, of all the whiskeys that I've tried, and I'll say that I would have given it a much more, I guess, favorable rating if the finish would have been a little bit longer and had a little bit better mouthfeel to it. But I would still put this at about a 90 out of 100. That's what I would say. Hopefully Jacob can give us a different opinion on that.
You know, a 90, that's pretty strong. I think I grade a little bit harder, but I would go probably, you know, in the 80 to 85 realm. This is still a very good whiskey.
So I've
had better, but I've had a whole lot worse.
Man, I got a long way to go to impress this guy.
But no, this is very good. Listen, 85, listen, that's a passing score.
No, I mean it is. So
That's above average.
So you would, out of our buttons here, which one would you give this one?
I would definitely give an applause.
Ah,
Absolutely. This is a very good whiskey. Something that I will definitely buy. And surprisingly, at the cost, is something that I can always have on hand. So,
yeah.
Cheers to that.
If you can find it once a year.
Absolutely right. The stock
That's the only bad thing about it. Is like, here, have this one, but once a year. That's it. All right. Well, for our next Whisky Daddy review, we're going to be doing the Whisky Daddy single barrel. That's going to be the next one that's going to be coming up. That's a pretty interesting one. But at the end of every single one of these Whisky Daddy reviews, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you here. We're going to do some bonus reviews. This is something I'm not